I'm going to be a little bit selfish and just say, for me, planning on my own is equal parts freedom and responsibility. But sometimes that responsibility part can feel a little bit overwhelming, which is why we were so excited to kind of focus on singles today. I know I need to be saving and making the most of my income. No one is saving for me. Um, I think I'm doing the right things, but is it enough? Should I be doing more? What are those things that I need to be doing that I don't even realize? And then I really want to retire someday. I want to make sure I'm making the right steps when it comes to saving, investing, planning for the long term, and all the what ifs that that I need to be doing so I can feel secure. And security is a big feeling, I think, for a lot of people who are tuning in today. I know I'm not alone. More of us than ever are planning on our own. We also got a lot of questions from people as they registered today. And I can already see that the chat has a lot of questions. So, Randall and Vanessa, very much looking forward to all that you have to share today. Um, Eager to get started. But two quick admin things. We do have a chat going on, and I'll do my best to pull in some of those questions, but we also have a fantastic team behind the scenes answering as well. So hopefully we'll get to as many of those as we can. The other thing is at the bottom of your screen, you can download the slides and a list of resources and links that we're going to talk through for the next 45 minutes or so. So we'll share some of that also via an email that'll come to you later today. But want to make sure you have the tools to help you take your next step. So anyway, let's get into it. And Randall, I'm going to start with you. Your team is working with folks every day, couples, singles, long-term relationships, what have you. But can you share a little bit about how the planning experience or how those conversations could look different for single women? And like, what do we need to be thinking about more or less than somebody who may be married or have a partner?
Right. It's it let's start with the positives first. As you mentioned, I'm a single lady, a household of one, and I like to start with that positive. You are a proud household of one, and you'll hear me say this a few things today because it's true, right? Whether that be by choice or by circumstances, doesn't have to matter. You're all out here watching this webinar. You're learning, you're taking next steps, you're leaning on this beautiful community, and I love that take control mentality. And you're right. People in my position, people in my branch, the people that I work with, we deal with both couples and singles. And the specifics that we look at depend on the current situation for the single, like how much you make, how much debt you have, how many children you have, a lot of other factors. But regardless of what your specific factors are, the end goal is the same. You need a plan in place to protect that future that you're working so hard on. So also let me acknowledge that it's not always easy to be single. There are some real barriers out there, really differences out there. You're navigating an economy and a culture that emphasizes couples and being married. And sometimes for people that could be challenging and demotivating. You might feel left out of resources sometimes, but we're here and there are resources available to you. So I think another thing, my friends that are also single sometimes fall into this thought of if it's just me, like I can put this stuff off. Maybe I put this stuff off until that person comes along and then I can plan together. But what I want to offer is setting yourself up for success is actually more important if you're single because there's not an obvious person there to handle the things that you need if you can't take care of you. So everyone's situation is different. I don't want to make this a right or wrong that you're single. It's unique to you. That's your business, right? But there's power in planning and addressing problems or concerns before they happen. You want your life to unfold by design and not default. So the mentality, again, you're going to hear me say it a lot, the power of the proud household of one. That starts with a plan to make sure you're saving enough that you be okay if something happens to you, ensure that your savings and investments last the rest of your life, and to make sure you're comfortable and you feel good about it no matter what happens in the future. And I see that honestly as a form of self care.
I love that. And I love that you said proud household of one. I'm in a relationship. My boyfriend's name is Clark. We've been together for almost 4 years now. And after this, I'm going to start being like, babe, I'm actually a proud household of one because you haven't put a ring on it.
Come
and
on, Clark.
it's not like, I love that we get to be proud of that too, because there are times Clark and I met as adults, like already fully established, set in our own ways. And there have been times where we'll look at each other and we'll both agree, like, life was a little bit easier when we were single and we only had to worry about ourselves. But you also have so much going on, whether you're working and then you might have kids or other family priorities. There's a lot that you might be juggling with, or you might be trying to keep up with physical and mental health. And sometimes your financial health gets pushed on that back burner. And without motivation, like Rendell mentioned, or somebody else holding you accountable to get things in order, it does get pushed and not become a priority. So think of your self-care. I love that she said that as well. So you want to take care of yourself and put yourself first, and it's okay. Like there's no guilt to that. Think of when you're on an airplane and they're doing that safety demo and they're like, put your oxygen mask on first before helping others out. Like if you don't take care of yourself, you wouldn't be able to give your full self to others. So there's nothing wrong with that, and you should plan for yourself and put yourself first. And if you have children, and it plan for you and your children, and it's going to be important to have that plan in place before something happens, because we know that circumstances can change, and having a plan in place with all of your accounts in order, it helps to ensure that your assets are distributed how you want and your wishes are granted. And it can also provide peace of mind for the unexpected. You'll feel more secure and prepared in case life throws us all those curveballs that it usually does. And you'll just sleep better at night having a plan in place.
100%. So many things you just said, both of you, resonate, the whole prioritizing. And I think we we all have so much on our to-do list. This easily can fall down the list, or I have one more thing to do, or I'm too tired at the end of the day, or it's important to prioritize. So I like the self-care analogy as well. So you're talking about having a plan, and we talk about what that means in a lot of different ways, but I want to hit on, I think there's almost we're going to jump around a little bit. I think we're talking a little bit about having a plan for the what ifs. So can you clarify that a little bit more? Are we talking about estate planning? And one of you might have just said, I think Rendell, you said, it's just me. Do I need this? And so when you say a plan, can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, all of the above. You need a plan, right?
Yeah.
Everyone needs a plan. And I think that there are a couple ways to think about this. So, first, everyone needs an estate plan. I mean, especially as single folks out there, you need an estate plan. And then the other part is, financial plan. And we talk about that a lot, your budget, your debt management, your savings, retirement, and investing. And I think we're going to spend a lot more time talking about this estate planning aspect to that, so that you can make sure you secure your future. But let's get into a little bit of what estate planning really means, because I think when you're single, you often think about who's going to take care of me when I can't take care of myself. Maybe you think about what's going to happen to everything when you pass away. Maybe you don't, but you should, right? So, especially if you're a single parent, you want to make sure that you have things established about what happens to you, who would take care of your kids, because that's not always so cut and dry in different situations. If you're single with no kids like me, or you have siblings or living parents, that you want to make sure that your wishes are granted, to make sure that whoever you care about can receive the assets that you've worked so hard to develop. And the people that you care about know how to handle that. And I understand we're human. No one likes to talk about dying, but it's so important to make sure that you have a plan, because tomorrow is not promised. So you can't just put it off until you get older. God willing, we all live to an older age, but you want to make sure that you're prepared, because your loved ones going through probate, trying to figure out how to get your affairs in order, is a very, very long, very hard process to go through, along with mourning your loss. So set them up for success. And one way that you can start today to set your loved ones up for success, whether you already have an estate plan, I'm going to encourage you, if you haven't reviewed it in a while, to review it. We have this great online tool. It's called the Fidelity Estate Planner. and the link's going to go in the chat and on the resources. And it helps outline and understand everything that you need in order to create an estate plan. And fidelity.com has that resource. Um, Also, everyone's situation is unique. And I say this because I don't assume that that resource is going to answer all of your questions. So if you need help, please call us. We're here. You're going to drop the number in the chat too. It's free to get help. We have resources, educational resources that will guide you on how to think about this situation, what steps to take. Now, we're not attorneys. We're not tax consultants and things like that. So you may need some of these resources in order to really build a strong plan, but we can still even help you find these resources. So wherever you're at today, whether you have one set up or you're like, that's a good idea, I want to encourage you. You can call us today and get that started.
Rendell, so right as soon as we said the term estate plan, I saw a couple comments in the chat. Same reaction I had. What is an estate plan? And who needs one? Like that sounds like something for people with a lot of money. Like that's how I used to think about that for sure. But can we talk a little bit more about what are the pieces of that? Because I know it's not just there are a lot of pieces. So Vanessa, I'm just going to stop talking and let you can you break that down a little bit more for us?
Yeah, of course. I want to reiterate though that everybody needs an estate plan. And we love helping our clients. It's why we do what we do. And we're here to help you out. And it, like Rendell said, it really depends on your situation. It's very unique and specific to you, but your estate plan can include documents like a will, which includes a named executor for your assets and guardianship details for any children that you might have. There's also a documented power of attorney for your financial affairs, a healthcare proxy for your medical decisions, or if you are incapacitated and can't make those medical decisions on your, who would make those on your behalf. Maybe even list all of your accounts and beneficiaries for those accounts. If you haven't added beneficiaries to your accounts, that's your homework. Do that today, right after this. All accounts should have beneficiaries. Maybe even a trust, which can specify exactly how and when your assets pass to your beneficiaries. And then it could also include personalized letters with instructions on your wishes for how you want your estate to be inherited. So keep in mind, though, that what I just listed isn't everything, but it's a starting point to help you start thinking about what you may need and how having one can potentially benefit you. The tool that Rendell mentioned, it's a very interactive tool. So it actually goes through and it'll ask you these types of questions. And we all know that circumstances can change. So working with a financial professional can help you gain a high level understanding of your personal situation. And then working with an estate planning attorney can help you decide what's right for you in your situation and then adjust that plan when life happens. We also have another resource on top of that estate planner tool. It's called FitSafe. And this is a way for you to store digital copies of all of your important documents in one safe, accessible place. So you can access it through desktop, download an app. I have the app. I have all of my travel documents in there in case I lose my wallet when I'm traveling. You can share that with any documents that you store. You can share it with your family so that everyone knows, or not everyone, whoever you designate to have access, they will know where everything is in case of an emergency. And on that website, there are a ton of pre-fillable, downloadable checklists that are free. You can access it and start filling that out today if you want. And it can help guide you as you pull everything together. And there's going to be a link in the chat for all of the resources through FitSafe.
I love a good checklist. I think our entire team, we live for the checklists and the guidelines. So this is a huge help. I know this has helped me get much more organized than I was. So, Rendell, can you talk a little bit more? The documentation, that's a big one. There's a lot of questions in the chat, like, how do I get started? How do I know what I need? I think some of these checklists and the tool can help guide you, as is calling for that kind of help. But can you talk a little bit more about the policies and accounts that you might need to think about?
Yeah, And besides all of those documents that Vanessa mentioned and the FidSafe, I'm writing that down, Vanessa, FidSafe and putting all your important policies and accounts in a place. You'll also want to consider things like your life insurance policy. Thing about life insurance is it's cheaper the younger that you get it. So never think that you're not at the appropriate age to protect your future. Now there are two types of life insurance that we're generally talking about most of the time. It's term and whole life insurance. The best way that I can think to explain this, the difference between the two, is to kind of give you an analogy. Term is like renting an apartment. You know, you have that apartment while you pay the rent, and then when the lease ends and you decide to move out, that apartment's done, right? You have no equity. It's done, right? You don't need it anymore. Versus whole life is like buying a house. You know, it may cost a little bit more, and you're putting money away, but eventually, hopefully, it builds equity and it's there for life if you want it, right? So that's kind of like the differences. And we have a tool online that you can use to help determine how much coverage you may need or what the monthly costs may be. So you can check that out if you don't have life insurance, but you want those documents there. You also want to think about disability insurance. So just be prepared if something happens, you can no longer work. If you're a household of one, that's a big deal. So make sure that you have your policies about your disability insurance. You also want to think about long-term care. So the majority of us will need long-term care at some point in our lives. And having this type of insurance can help offset the cost, which can be tremendous. I was talking to a client the other day that it's helping somebody with long-term care $20,000 a month. And because we all know that long-term care and healthcare in general can be some of the highest expenses that we have, it's important to protect yourself, especially knowing that most of us will likely need this at some point. And then, of course, our good old emergency fund, you want to make sure you have that established too.
Oh my goodness. So long-term care, healthcare, these are definitely huge topics we hear about and get questions about. I know so many questions. And in fact, I just want to plug later this summer, we're going to do a deeper dive on planning for healthcare and long-term care, because I know this is just kind of a very gray area for so many of us. And thank you for bringing it up, Randell. We'll definitely get even deeper into that. But let's that's a great segue into some of the questions that we're seeing in the chat about emergency funds. And is do you need to save more in emergency fund when you're single or single with kids? I'm going to say probably yes, but what do you guys think about that? Vanessa, maybe can you start us off?
Yeah, so we actually have a guideline for emergency savings, and we usually suggest to aim to save 3 to 6 months worth of your essential day-to-day living expenses in that emergency savings or that rainy day account. And you also want to make sure, so you want to make sure it's liquid, but we also want to make sure that it's earning the highest interest rate that it can, because right now you could get a pretty high, good interest rate on your cash. So make sure you put that money to work, even though it's there for a rainy day. So that guideline is going to be the same whether you're married, single, have kids, or don't have kids. But the amount is what changes, because based on your essential expenses, if you're single without kids, your amount might be different than somebody that's married with 3 kids. So it's going to depend on your unique situation and what works for you. But I usually tell people to err on the side of caution. If you've worked with me before, you know I'm a doomsday preparer. And so what I mean for that is we say 3 to 6 months is the guide. But if you are single, we usually will suggest maybe leaning closer towards that 6 month number, because if something does happen, regardless of the circumstances, there's not a second income to fall back on. So the more you have saved for emergencies, the more prepared you're going to be.
And I'll also add that, like I said, all of this is a form of self-care, but like budgeting is truly a form of self-care here. So like I mentioned earlier, and so many people have mentioned earlier, if you're single, there's a little bit more at stake when you make budgeting mistakes. You spend too much on the month or something like that because you have less options to fall back on. So, I don't know you all personally out there that are watching this, but I imagine that you want to live a fulfilled, healthy life, mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially. So part of budgeting is developing that foundation of discipline, and even investing is about that discipline. So building that foundation can help create that space and capacity for happiness to help you make good decisions in the moment and in the long term, so that you can earn and save more and more, and really start to build that future that really matters to you.
We internally we talk about, the guidelines for saving for an emergency. We call it our sleep at night number. What's going to make you feel secure that you can sleep at night? But I will say a combination of those guidelines, but also the budgeting, Randell. I think for those who know me, I'm dealing with a roof leak that I cannot find the source of. And so I've had to bring down that emergency fund and build it back up and bring it down again. So all really, really important to do. So more questions coming in about investing. And this is one of our favorite topics. It comes back to making the most of our money and making sure or helping it work as hard as it can be. How do you decide, or what should you be considering when you're thinking about your investment strategy when you are a proud household of one? Is that different, or what should you just be thinking about? Randall, can you touch on that?
Yeah, I would say there's really no one size fits all approach, whether you're single or you're planning with somebody else. Similar to the emergency fund guidelines that Vanessa just mentioned. But it's important, especially for women, to think about investing, whether you're single or not, because women tend to live about 60 years longer than men, so you need more money to last longer in retirement. Women still tend to earn 83 cents for every dollar a man makes. So every cent that you make, you have to make sure it's working, right? And then women spend on average of 15,000 on healthcare and retirement, and often end up with about 30% less in retirement savings than men do, due to gender pay gap and taking breaks and things like that. So how do you deal with these differences that men and women have in their planning? And the big point is to make sure that your money is working as hard as possible for you. So there's a slide on the screen that shows the potential difference between a one-time investment of 10,000 saving versus investing over 30 years. So if you save it, you see at the end of 30 years that goes to 20,000, right? And if you invest it, even in a conservative portfolio, you get just about 150, additional 150,000. Let's just call it a round number. What could you do with an additional, call it 150 plus thousand? This is why it's important to really think about this. And the key with this is when to decide when to save or invest is the long term, thinking about the long term picture. Like, is your goal to build wealth? Is your goal to retire successfully? Is your goal to be comfortable? Like how comfortable are you with the market ups and downs? So all of these are different factors that determine how you invest. But I'll say it again, you can call us and we can provide help for where you are.
I could do so much with that extra 150,000. So much.
Do you need, if you have any extra, my roof is, move on, moving along, moving along.
We have to find that leak first. So,
I know.
and I want to kind of pivot. If anybody I love Friends, so I make the pivot joke all the time. But I want to kind of jump in here and talk about boundaries. So we talked about the emergency fund, investing, and every person's situation is so unique, and we all need to plan for ourselves and our future selves. But what about setting up boundaries? And I wanted to bring this up with this group because I know from my own personal experience, I'm the youngest of 5 girls, the only one that is not married, without children. And I feel like my parents are, if they need something, like they live in Florida. So one time they did need something on the house fixed, or trips, anything like that, they always go to me first because they think, oh, she's not married and she doesn't have kids. Like, I feel bad asking the other kids to help out. And so I feel like there's a misconception that single people in general have more money because we have less responsibilities. And in turn, some of them will expect us to be more generous. And then, they're thinking we can spend more freely because we don't have children to take care of or a spouse that we need to have, discussions with. Like, I know my parents are always like, oh yeah, um, I don't want to ask Mary for money because then Alan's going to get mad, stuff like that. And what they don't think about is sometimes when you're single, the expenses can actually be higher because we could be living in a higher cost of living area and might have more debt. And then we don't have anybody to split our expenses with. Like, I know my siblings moved out to the suburbs. And I chose not to do that. And so if I wanted to move out to where they live, like I could probably afford a bigger house. But just little things like that, people don't really think about, and it puts an unfair amount of pressure on us. So I think what Rendell has been saying is so true, and it hits home because we really do need to prioritize self-care and setting up your future and creating those boundaries, especially when it comes to money.
All good points. And there's a lot of folks commenting on the chat that they can relate. I know I can as well. But one thing I want to point out, some of you were asking about the FidSafe, the link to FidSafe that we shared. It is the accurate link, but it looks like they might be updating the site. So bear with us. Don't lose the link. It will come back. So apologies for that technical difficulty, but hopefully very shortly it'll pop back up. So and we will put it in the, I think if we can put it in the chat again, a few people asked, they missed it. It's also in the resources down below. So, but that's the one with the good checklists and a way to kind of organize your documents and other important information. So just wanted to bring that back real quick. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about retirement and feeling secure. This whole thing about feeling secure in your future is a big thing. We hear a lot, we get a lot of questions about this. And I think a lot of us are concerned certainly about, putting the right savings and investment practices in place, but also from a planning standpoint, some of us are very lucky, whether you're single or otherwise, to know you have other family members who might be able to play a support role as you get older and need help or care, but maybe not everyone. So how can someone create a plan for the future, both financially and in that kind of healthcare and care space, that if they don't have many people in their corner? Vanessa, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I'd like to start with the retirement planning piece. So when I'm meeting with clients one-on-one, I always ask, how do you envision your dream retirement? So, when do you want to retire? Where do you want to live when you're retired? What kind of a lifestyle do you want to live? This helps the rest of the conversation, and it helps us to work backwards to shape up the rest of the plan from that financial standpoint. It also helps me and other financial consultants understand what's important to you and how can we help set you up for success now and in the future. And Randell mentioned earlier about like having a foundation. I always tell people during the one-on-one meetings, like, we are laying the foundation. You always want to have a strong foundation to build on, and we're just going to keep building it from here. So we're along with you for this entire journey, and we're here to help. And households of one do have that single source of income, but the silver lining is that with households of one, you could potentially also have lower expenses than a multi-person household. So the amount that you might need in retirement could be different, might even be less. And then we can also include planning for potential future healthcare costs in these conversations so that you're going to feel comfortable and prepared for what's to come later down the line. But from an emotional standpoint, if you don't have siblings or children, think about your chosen family, those friends or your community, and have open and honest conversations with them to see if any of them would be willing to be your power of attorney or healthcare proxy. And these decisions and these conversations can be hard, especially within a family. I know from firsthand experience, the minute you say death, my mom freaks out. She's like, I don't want to talk about it. Stop. Like, closes her ears. And having the conversation with like my siblings. So I have two older sisters that I'm really close with, and I had to ask them, like, who would be comfortable being my medical power of attorney? Because when the time comes, like, I don't want to be kept on life support for the rest of my life. Like, and only one stepped up and was like, I'll pull the plug on you. And so these were conversations that we had to have as a family. And, my dad asked us, like, if something happens to me, who wants to be the executor of my estate? he expected all the kids to raise their hand. None of us. We're like, like, you better go ask the other sibling that's not here to represent herself.
Vanessa, I feel like dinners at your house are very interesting. So
They are.
I was about to say too, is like making sure that your people know what you want and like it and like all of the beautiful things that come with those relationships, the humor, the seriousness, the fear. Like it's important to have those conversations. Um, also for healthcare and aging alone support, there are resources available. You come across sometimes single people who are like, I don't have anybody. So whether you have somebody or not, your patient advocates can help you with navigating the medical system, which I just said can be very expensive. So those are important resources. Other things to consider: make sure you take advantage of all of your tax special accounts. So health savings accounts, flexible savings accounts are great resources that you have access to a lot of times that'll allow you to take those medical expenses down or make them more manageable, especially as a household of one. I also mentioned long-term care. If you don't have it or you haven't looked into it, you might want to check it out and look at it, because one of the best gifts that you can give yourself or a loved one is ensuring that you have appropriate support when you can't take care of yourself. So I mentioned before that most of us will need this, but let me give you a stat. In America, someone turning 65 today has almost a 70% chance of needing some type of long-term care in their remaining years. And as many of us have experienced already, and like I shared before, this can take both an emotional toll, like Vanessa was saying, and a financial toll on everyone in your family. And then lastly, I want to double down on something else Vanessa mentioned. Like, we all need people. We all need support. We're talking about investing in your future, getting your documents together. I'm going to invite you to invest in your community. Take time to network and build strong relationships with your family, your chosen family, whatever that might be in your situation. You need them and they need you. So spend that time. I also throw in another tip. I like having a single lady role model, right? So I had the privilege of talking to one of mine a while back, Tracy Ellis Ross. She joined us for a conversation that you can check out on the Women Talk Money Learn page. But it just helps motivate me and helps inspire me to be the best version of myself that I can be, especially given that I'm single. I'm kind of living life outside of the norm, right? And then I'm going to say it one more time for good measure. You proud household of one out there, you can call us. You don't need to have anything prepared in advance. Just wherever you're at, no matter where you are in the process, you can call us and we can help make these steps. I know we're throwing a lot of different things at you, but let us help navigate you through all of these things.
Let us be part of your community.
Yes. Yes.
exactly. Okay, so I'm reading through the questions in the chat that are getting upvoted and just that are coming in still. So I want to hit another point. So, circumstances can change, sometimes beyond our control, no matter how much we plan for. But what happens if circumstances do change? A relationship might come to an end, divorce happens, maybe we've lost a loved one or your partner's passed away, you're now single. Are there different considerations we should be thinking about, or any kind of tips for folks in that situation?
Yeah, I can start with this one because one of my sisters actually went through a divorce a couple years ago, and we were not ever kind of as a family, and her too, just it wasn't really planned for. And so I mean, regardless of how or why you're single, the most important thing to do is take care of yourself first and your kids if you have kids. But your financials may also need some attention and revisions if things change suddenly. Like you might need to learn how to budget off of one income, or making sure that you're properly insured, updating your important documents and insurance policies, so beneficiaries to reflect what's happened. If you have joint accounts, or if they have access to your accounts, you can remove them or open up a separate account. And then also consider changing your passwords or your PIN numbers. There are a lot of things to think about, and we don't expect you to remember all of them. that's what we're here for. We will be your my team, our team calls me the encyclopedia. So we're here for you. You don't have to write all of this down and, memorize it. Like when life happens suddenly and there's a major life change, call us. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you through any of those life changes. And we want to be there and help you be prepared as soon as possible if that happens suddenly, or just to help you prepare and plan for, if something later down the line could happen with life, you know, getting crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm glad you're saying call us. I know that we say that a lot, and but everyone's situation is so unique, especially in a situation like that. There are a lot of variables you're probably, dealing with, and a lot of questions you have. So making that call is really important. And like you said, I mean, that's what we're here for, to help. So, um, Randall, any other? Sorry, I cut you off. Apologies.
Oh, no, no. I was gonna double down on the call list. I'm glad that you did because we can't say it enough. And I wish more people felt comfortable just calling and knowing that we want to help you. But I also want to note that there are certain situations that when in these circumstances that Vanessa mentioned that might affect your Social Security benefits as well. So as a baseline, you should know that waiting to claim your Social Security benefit um, means that you could increase your lifetime benefit that's shown on the slide here. So just kind of understanding how that part of things work. But let's say you're divorced or widowed. How does this impact your Social Security? So if you're divorced, your benefit could be based on actually your ex-spouse's work history, depending on some things. So make sure you check the Social Security Administration and see what your benefit actually looks like. Be aware of that. The second thing, if you're widowed, you may be eligible to collect your late spouse's payments as a survivor benefit, or you can collect your own Social Security benefit. Now, here's the thing: you can't do both. But you have to do one at a time. But the choice doesn't need to be permanent. You can switch back and forth and see what strategy works best for you, as shown on the slide that's on the screen. And again, we want to help. We can help you run the numbers and decide, especially in this situation, which strategy might be right for you in your situation. And we understand that this stuff is hard. Like, you're already going through a lot. No one really wants to talk about it, but I think part of the benefit of calling and having a financial professional help you through this is we're an unemotional, unbiased third party that can think level headed and make sure that we're supporting you make good decision, that your future's best interest is in mind. So I think it's a really great idea to partner with us to help navigate through this.
100%. And, I think a lot of the things we've been talking about with estate planning, with healthcare, long-term care, insurance, some of these things, we do pull in other subject matter experts, if you will, who can help connect you to the right options and solutions depending on what you need. So, again, that's what we're here for, to help kind of help you figure that out. And what was the word you used? Pivot a little while ago, Vanessa. We're going to pivot. We got a number. A lot of folks write in questions when they register to join us today. So we got a few about being single, but potentially starting a new relationship. So this is one for those who might be dating. How soon is too soon to bring up the money conversation or the credit score conversation if you find yourself in this situation? Vanessa.
it's never. I get judged all the time when I bring this up with my girlfriends, because I will tell them that I know for sure I didn't bring it up on our first date, but it was definitely before he asked me to be his official girlfriend, because I knew I was gonna be like, this will determine if I say yes or no. But I remember asking Clark, like, what's your credit score like? Because I had somebody in the family that got married and married into debt, and they had no idea until they were married. And so I feel like I've worked hard, you all have worked hard to get to where you are. And if you're looking for a partner to share your life and your successes with, you need to make sure that that someone is worthy of your company and your time and your hard work and your work ethic, like all the things, just worthy of you in general before you get in too deep or too attached. And it's just having a conversation. I was just joking. You don't have to like not date them, but like I feel you should have every right to ask, like, where are you financially? Or like, what, when Clark and I first met, he was still using his debit card. And like now he, is building up his credit. And so there are things we can help them with. But having that conversation, feel comfortable, ask them, like, and feel empowered to do so.
Oh, and can I add something? It's so smart for the person to have asked that question because who you partner with is one of the biggest financial decisions that you could possibly make. And I would say that because of that, I wish that more people would talk about money earlier. It doesn't have to be super serious, right? Just talk about money where it's appropriate for you in your relationship, but don't wait until things get serious to then learn about something that you might be shocked about or need to manage. It's really important that this is part of a healthy relationship so you can have a successful financial future together, potentially, right?
100%. There are a lot of questions we've been saying, give us a call. Everybody's situation is different. Let us help. And there are a lot of questions. How do I find that person? You can absolutely call us. It is free to make that call. It is complimentary to have that conversation. Please do. But I want to plug the next session we're doing 2 weeks. So June 27th, it's a Thursday. We are going to be talking about getting that help, working with a financial professional. So we're specifically talking about this. When do you need one? How to find the right person to work with you? And then what does that first meeting and ongoing experience look like? What does help look like? So we're going to dig into that and go much deeper into the experience of working with a financial professional and then but tackle some of those other questions as well. So tune in for that. We'll give you a QR code. Oh, it's up. There you go. You can get the calendar hold right there. So definitely do that. But we are almost at time. I know we've touched a lot of topics. So quick speed round question for each of you. What's one takeaway you want to leave everyone with today? Vanessa? Or
I
Randall?
actually
Or
was
jump in.
thinking, like, I'm so proud to be part of this community and to have had the chance to meet like you, Michelle, you, Rendell, like the whole thing with building your community and your network that hits home so hard for me because there's nothing more empowering than surrounding yourself with people that will uplift you and support you and keep you motivated and hold you accountable for reaching your dreams and goals. And I loved that when Rendell was like, focus on your community. I'm like, will you be part of my community?
I love that. Yeah, I'm like, that's a big deal to me. And I'll say, we talked about it, but if this hits you, I'm going to hit you with it again. Set up your estate plan and review your estate plan. Yeah.
Love it. So Randall and Vanessa, thank you for insights, ideas. You've added to-dos for my list. And a reminder to everyone, I know there's a lot of links that have been shared in the chat. We do have those slides at the bottom of your page. Hopefully you can see them, download those. There's links there so you can save them for when you have time to look into that. We also have, if we can bring back the slide that just shows the upcoming events. Use this QR code for the calendar hold. I mentioned Thursday, June 27th in 2 weeks, talking about how to work with a financial professional. That's going to be really good. I think there's a lot of hesitation to make that call and set up that appointment. We want to be done with that. So we're going to talk through all those topics. Also coming up this summer, we are going to do more on healthcare and long-term care, on estate planning, on just making your money last through retirement and how to get there. Another good one that's coming up is a session all about Roth accounts, which there's so many questions about that and interest about that. So we want to just kind of tee those up. So scan that QR code for the calendar hold. And then of course you can also continue the conversation on LinkedIn and Instagram. We do love those comments. We get back to people there too. So please join us there as well. So I think that's a wrap. Randall and Vanessa, thank you so much again. And to everybody who tuned in, thank you so much for joining. I hope everybody has a great day.